Okay, guys, my name is Desmond, and I welcome you to my lesson for today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for joining. I suppose you will enjoy today's lesson. So, just in case if you are watching this either on any of our online social media platforms, just make sure that in case if you're watching on YouTube, you subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you are updated in terms of our future uploads. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. In today's lesson, we'll be looking at question 1 of mathematics, paper 1. So, obviously, on yesterday's lesson, I took you through all the basics that you need to be aware of. So, in today's lesson, we'll be looking at the first part of your question paper, where I'll be showing you guys on how to solve this type of problems. And most importantly, guys, just make sure that you don't miss the next lesson by Mr. Sibanda, where he'll be taking you guys only grade 12 learners, where he'll be looking at calculus. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we've got an hour to complete all these questions, so I won't waste any much of our time. But what I'm going to do now is to quickly go through question number 1. So most importantly, as you know, I'm more interested in showing you guys on how to answer questions, and most importantly, indicate to you exactly where you score your marks. So this is the first question that we'll be looking at, where they say 1.1 solve for x in each of the following. We'll go through 1.1 up until 1.4, 1.2, the whole of it, and again 1.3. We'll see how far it goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, our very first question, remember guys, at all times, you are advised to start each new question on a new page. Very, very much. So, question 1.1. Most importantly, guys, follow the numbering system used in the question paper. Do not follow your own numbering system, because in that way, we are no longer sure if you are answering the questions asked by the examiner in the manner in which they asked in the question paper. So, question 1.1, they say solve for x in each of the following. Let me just quickly bring this again so that I explain to you something very, very much important. Ladies and gentlemen, I said in each and every given statement, question, or instruction, there's a cream of the question, the sentence, or the statement. So, in this case, an instruction says solve for x in each of the following. So that means your final answer must be presented as x. It's equals to whatever. Based on yesterday's lesson, you do understand very well in terms of what type of problems you may be facing. So 1.1.1 says x squared plus x minus 12. This is x equals to 0. Ferdinand, just a quick recap. On yesterday's lesson, I said normally in mathematics you are given problems. Before you can solve any problem, ask yourself, what type of a problem am I facing with? Is it a quadratic equation? Is it a linear equation? Is it an inequality problem, which could be a linear inequality or a quadratic inequality? Or is it an expression? Grace Makito, we said the moment you see an equal sign, it simply means you are dealing with an equation. So that means this is an equation where you need to solve for the unknown. What is the unknown? The unknown is represented by any letter from A up to Z. It doesn't matter whether it's in capital letters or small letters. So in this case, examiner chose to use letter X as the unknown, which means you must solve for X. as the question has instructed. What type of a problem is this? Is it a linear equation or is it a quadratic equation? Good people, because we see we've got a squared over there, it means this is a quadratic equation. What does it mean? In short, it means in the end, you must have two values of the unknown. Since our unknown is x, it means we must have two values of x. Very, very much important. Remember, guys, I said when you are given a quadratic problem, you need to rewrite it in its standard form. Very, very much important. What is the standard? So if you're given a quadratic equation, this is the standard form. Always, 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 always make sure that it's in that format of the coefficient variable squared, the coefficient variable, then a constant. All of this, Shreyas, if you remember, early or in the beginning of this year, I said the whole of your quadratic equation has to be equated to 0. If it's not equated to 0, then it means it's not in the standard form. For example, let's say the whole of this was equated to 8. That means you had to transpose that 8 to the other side and work it out with that other constant until it's in the standard form and it's equated to 0. Once it's equated to 0, then it means you can factorize and then solve for whatever your final answers are. So that was just a quick recap, Ferdinand, based on the lesson that we had yesterday. Quickly, I'm going to say, in this case, we are given an equation, the type of a problem, it's a quadratic equation, and already it's in the standard form. So that means all that I need to do, it is just to find the factors. So guys, very, very much important. Remember, in case if you are in grade 10, make sure you apply the strategy given by Mr. Sibanda there on his previous lessons. But just in case, if you are in grade 11 and 12, you need to make sure that quickly, you are able to punch a quadratic formula on your calculator. In that way, it's going to quickly give you the factors. I know it's easy to find the factors for those, but just make sure that at all times you are able to punch all of that on your screen. So you know your A is 1, your B is positive 1, you see that's negative 12. So it's negative into, what is your B? It's positive 1 plus that with a plus, B squared minus 4AC over 2, your A, it's 1. So you are getting 3 as your first possible answer. So remember, quadratic equation or the quadratic formula, it gives you the final answer, which is 3. Then you say, or x is equals 2. On that same formula, just come back and update that sign from positive to a minus. It therefore gives you your final x value as negative 4. So when you rewrite these factors or these answers inside your brackets, you write them as opposite signs. So that means it's going to be x. The final answer is positive 3. You write it as negative 3. Shreyas, it's x. Your final answer is negative 4. You write it as an opposite sign, which is that. For example, if your x, let's say maybe 2 over 7, when you have to rewrite it inside the brackets, remember this thing, if you do it in reverse, let me just write it somewhere down there so that it makes perfect sense. So let's say your x was equals to 1 over 3 and again, or your x was equals to negative 2 over 5. Let's say for some reason when you punched all of that, whatever the problem you might be given, it gives you these final answers when you use a quadratic formula. So before this thing can be this, it means it was 3. That one at the bottom, you attach it to x. It means it was 3x, which was equals to 1. And again, this one before it became that. The bottom one, you attach it to x. So that means it was 5x, which was equals to negative 2. So if you go back, it has to take you back to that. So Before it can be this thing, guys, it was 3x minus 1, which was equals to 0. And again, before it was this, it was actually 5x plus 2, which was equals to 0. Very, very much important. So now you already have your factors which are equated to 0. So you just write this as it is. You just write this as it is inside the brackets, which is 3x minus 1, 5x minus, plus 2. So I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Please make sure that you keep this secret to yourself. I want to tell you guys how examiner actually set that question, because already we know that our first final x value is equals to 3, or our other x value, what is it? It's negative 4. I want to tell you guys that when you think, you must think deep and think of how others are thinking. So this is how they came up with that problem for you guys to solve in exam. Examiner wanted your final answer to be this and that. So they worked out everything in reverse. So just like I've explained before, this final answer could be that. It was x minus 3, which was equals to 0. Or it was x, what is it? In the opposite sign is positive 5, which was equals to 0. So because now everything is equated to 0, you take this as a whatever that you write inside your binomial. So that means you have x minus 3, you have x plus 4. Now what examiner did said that times that, it gave them x squared. That times that, what is it? Is it a positive? Yes, it's positive 4x. And this times this, what is it? It's negative 3x. And then that times that, what is it? I think it's negative 12. And the whole of that was equated to 0. So they worked out the like term. So that means the problem is now x squared. What is that? This is positive x. What is that? This is minus 12. This is equals to 0. Then this is what they did. They have erased all of this, and they gave you this as a problem, which is that. So that means they worked out this problem in reverse. They already know what your final answers are. So because you attend lessons similar to this one, you will then realize that everything is possible in all possible ways, whether in the forward direction or in reverse. You can still figure out exactly what examiner was thinking. Okay, so now obviously there you can say x minus 3 is equals to 0, or x plus 4 is equals to 0. Then you transpose your x is equals to positive 3, or your x is equals to negative 4. Very, very much important. So already you are able to notice that by so doing, you score yourself full 3 marks. It's not that much complicated. And this is how you score your marks. So they're going to give you 1 mark for the factors, and then again, they are going to give you 1 mark for your 2x values. If you want to prove if your final answers are correct, substitute them in the original equation there. I've always been explaining to you guys that you can always prove if your solve for x is correct. Firstly, substitute with 3 and 3 there, punch the whole of this and expect to get 0. If you don't get 0, something is wrong. It's either your calculation is wrong or you punched something incorrectly. Number 2, test with this one. Substitute negative 4 there, substitute negative 4 there, punch the whole of this, expect to get 0. If you don't get 0, then you know something went wrong. So to test, it helps when you're dealing with a problem that has the square roots, because you are able to therefore say between these two answers, you'll find that the other one is correct and the other one is not correct. That's why the other one you say is equals to whatever, and the other one you say it's not equals to whatever. But I think we'll get to that question over there. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you happy there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, 100%. So now let's have a look at question 1.1.2, and this question is allocated 5 marks. An interesting question that you should make sure that you score all the marks. Let's see. This is square root of, let me just try to get another marker there. So this problem, we are having square root of 2x plus 1 being equated to x minus 0, and this question, it's allocated what is it? It's 5 marks. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, that at all times, before you can try to solve, understand the type of a problem that you are dealing with. What is this, guys? This is an equation. Why am I saying it's an equation? It's because I notice an equal sign over there. What does it mean? It means I must solve for the unknown. What is the unknown in this case? The unknown, Ferdinand, is letter x. So that means I must solve for letter x. Remember, with this type of questions, Dumelo, you need to make sure that on your left, you just remain with square root, and everything, you move it to the right side. So that means if you have, let's say, square root of x plus 7 minus 2, this is equals to, let's say, x. Very, very much important that on the left, you just remain with a square root, and everything else, you move it to the right. So in short, it means you must move that to the other side and just remain with whatever that is inside the brackets or inside the square root. Then everything else remains on the right side. Why do you have to do this? It's because you want to remove the square root. Whatever that you do on the left, you do on the right. So let's try to solve that problem that we are given over there. So that's how you approach this type of a problem that has got a square root. You just know that you need to remove everything and put it on the other side and just remain with a square root on the left side. So let's see. In this case, examiner made it easy such that everything is already on the right, and then we have this thing with a square root on the left. So let me just check if someone is here. I want to quickly explain something to them. Okay, she's not here, but it's fine. So what I wanted to say, guys, is that always when you have square root, there's an invisible 2 over there. Just like when you have x, there's an invisible 1 there, there's an invisible power there. So they only start writing there if maybe is 3, or otherwise it's 1 over 3, they can write it like that. But you know very well that if you've got x inside, this thing is the same as x. Remember, there's invisible 1 over there. So that 1 is at the top, and then 2, it's at the bottom. So that means if you have 4 square root of y, you have invisible 1 over there. So this thing is the same as y. This one, you write it at the top. You say over 4. So if you just have a square root of p, you have invisible 2 over there, you have invisible 1 over there, then this is equals to that invisible 1 over invisible 2. The reason why you remove a square root by squaring it is because you know that this thing is the same as that inside. So you square it, and you also square it on the other side, so that this can cancel with that, and you have p to the invisible 1, which is the same as p to the invisible 1. So that is the main reason why when you remove a square root, you square that square root. So let's see. You can see now that you have 2x plus 1. You square to remove that square root. Whatever that you do on the left, you also do on the right. So that means by so doing, you have removed the square root. But now, can you see, you have 2 monomials there, which makes it 2 of these monomials of the same whatever that is inside. So now you're starting to work. Let's work. So we still have 2x plus 1. We cannot do anything about that because it's not the like terms. You cannot add 2 bananas and just 1 as a number. So let's see. You do this by that, this by that, this by that, that by that. So obviously you have x squared. You have that being 1x, that plus 1x, that plus just 1. So let's see. You still have 2x plus 1, which is equals to x squared. Can you see you've got the like terms? So this is 2x plus 1. Remember, guys, can you now see that you've got a quadratic equation? Why is it a quadratic equation? Because you see you've got an equal sign and you've got a squared over there. And for that reason, it means finally you will need to find the factors and have two possible values of x. Massively important, guys. Is that a question before I continue? Yeah, boo. Who's that? Can you mention your name?
It's Tumelo, sir.
Tumelo, in which province are you again?
From Gauteng.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sir. On the 1.1.2, the equation say root of 2x plus 1 is equal to x minus 1. So why after squaring it's positive 1 instead of negative 1 squared?
Why after squaring is positive 1 and not what? You said and not what?
Not negative.
Oh, okay. So
It's
thanks for that question, Tumelo. Let's say you've got that name. So this 2, it means you have 2 of the same thing. So
yes,
just
sir.
like when you have 7 squared is 7 times 7 or into 7 and that. So let's try to work it out. Let's see. We have x plus that, x plus that. So when you times that by that is x squared, isn't it? When you times this by that is positive 1x. When you times this by that is positive 1x. When you times 1 times 1 is 1, but you see the signs are positive there. So that is why we're having positive 1 and not negative 1 over. Did I answer, Tumel?
Yes, you are, sir. I understand that part. But
Yeah.
there on the top is x minus 1, not x plus 1, sir.
Is it me who made a mistake?
Yeah, sir, yes.
No.
You put
Then
plus
I'm the
instead of
one
negative.
who made a mistake. I think even though some of you guys might have noticed it, I'm wondering why you did not say. So, Tumelo, what I've explained in terms of it being a plus there, but I was explaining something which I copied incorrectly. So I'm going to then quickly try to correct that. Thanks very much for that, Tumelo. So next time, Tumelo, be that confident enough to say, you made a mistake. Because I thought maybe you were the one who did not understand that process. But since we are on the same page, I'll just be quick on that one. Just make sure that in case if you don't understand, you ask again. So, Tumelo, can I give you a can I give you the blessings to be confident next time and say you made a mistake?
Yes,
100%. So let's see. We have 2 of the same thing being x minus 1. That times that is x squared. That times that is minus x. This times that is minus 1x. That times that is positive 1. Okay, so let's see. Obviously, we have the like terms. It's x squared. You are giving away x. You're giving away x. You are giving away 2x. Then plus 1. I think we are now on the same page, isn't it? Okay, so let's see. We have a quadratic equation. So I was explaining to say it's an equation because I see an equal sign and I see a squared over there, which means I'm going to have 2 possible x values. So now this thing, it's not in the standard form, so I need to rewrite it in the standard form. How can I do that? I need to move everything to one side and remain with 0 on the other side. You remember the song? Chabalala, one side. So it also applies also here, guys. Baloi, one side, which means you can move everything to the other side so that you remain with 0 there. So that means you remain with 0. You've got x squared, you have minus 2x plus 1. Just write it as it is so that you don't confuse yourself. Then you transpose that, it is minus 2x. You transpose that, it's minus 1. Then you work out the like terms. You have 0 being equals to x squared, that and that, it gives you minus 4x. What about this and that? It seems like it gives you 0 there. I'm not sure if I'm getting that correctly, but I think so, because 1 minus 1 is equals to 0. So remember, guys, this thing, you can still swap and it's still the same thing. By that, I mean you can rewrite it like that so that it makes sense. So it's more like you're saying 2 is, let me not even use that. It's more like you're saying 2 is equals to P. So that means P is equals to 2. Doesn't matter whichever way you write it, but just make sure that everything remains as it is in terms of the signs. Massively important. So let's see, guys. Can you see in this case, what you need to do is to take out the common factor. Otherwise, you can factorize using the quadratic formula. How do you use it? You know very well that your A is 1, your B is -4, and your C is 0. It can still work, but otherwise, because you've got a common factor, you just take out x to the outside, and then you just have 1x minus 4 is equals to, remember, when you factorize or take out a factor on the outside, whatever that you do, just make sure that if you go back, it takes you back to exactly that. When you say this times that, it gives you x squared, this times that, it gives you -4x, which means you can therefore say x is equals to 0, or x minus 4 is equals to 0. So can you see, it's more like you're having this and you equate that to 0, this to 0, then you need to now solve, and you're having your x is equals to 4. So remember, I said with this type of problems where you've got a square root, you need to test both of these answers and check if both of them, they satisfy that statement of saying square root of that is equals to that. So let's quickly try to test and see if both of those answers, they are correct. That's when you're dealing with an equation that has got a square root. So let's see. That means you're going to say square root into 2 into start with 0, then say plus 1 is equals to, I'm getting 1. So it's +1 when I use a 0. I'm getting +1. Let's test on the other side. So it's going to be 1 minus 1. I'm getting 0. So can you see, when I use 0, I'm not getting equal answers. That is why I'm going to say x is actually not equals to 0. There's a mark for you to indicate that. Then you test again using +4. So you do the same. Square root of 2 into 2, let's say square root of 2 into 4 plus 1. What are you getting? You get 3, which is just +3. Let's test on the right side. What are you getting? It's 4 minus 1, which is still equals to +3. So that means x is actually equals to 3 and not equals to 0. So you only do this when you are dealing with a problem that has got a square root. So ladies and gentlemen, quickly, let's check exactly how do you score your marks for that. For you to square both sides, I'm going to give you a mark, ladies and gentlemen. Good people, for you to rewrite that in the standard form, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you a mark, ladies and gentlemen, for you to actually get your factors correct. I am going to give you a mark for that. So for you to say x is not equals to, or writing it as x is equals to 0 and say not, applicable, I'm still going to give you a mark for that. I doubt I'm going to give you a mark if you just say x is equals to 0. Good people, for you to say x is equals to 4, I'm going to give you a mark. So that is how you score yourself full 5 marks. Ferdinand, did you get that? Sizeni, did it make sense?
Yes, sir.
So remember, guys, it's not only about me solving these problems for you guys, but most importantly, I'm guiding you in terms of approach this type of problem. So just make sure that at all times you pay full attention to the. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, please do allow me before I forget to say it's very much important that I say it's very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, because what I'm about to say, it's massively, 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 massively important, ladies and gentlemen. A day without learning something new, it's a day wasted. By so saying, please do make sure that by the end of each and every lesson that I conduct, not only my lesson, but also lessons provided by Mr. Sibanda, make sure that you learn something new. Why? Simply because a day without learning something new, it's a day waste. So 1.1.3 is exactly what we'll be doing. Good people, this question is allocated 4 marks. An interesting question of which I want you guys to notice exactly how you approach this type of problems. So let me just quickly get a different marker over there. I hope we are not running out of time. I wish for us to actually complete all these questions to the exponent that, and this is equals to 2 to the exponent 27. And this question, is it, I think it was 4 marks, but we'll just check. Okay, so remember, guys, for me, always when I notice a variable being in the position of an exponent, I know I need to apply the laws of exponents. Ceci Banda told you the laws of exponents recently. He's done a lesson where he was teaching you guys the laws of exponents. So it's not only about you understanding the application of the laws of exponents, but how do you see that you now need to apply an exponent? It's because the moment I've got 4 to the exponent y, maybe this is equals to 1. So because I notice my variable, my unknown, what is the variable? What is the unknown? Unknown is any letter from A all the way up to Z. Ladies, they could have used J, they could have used Y, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever examiner feel like using. They are just going to put it there. But why are they using X in all of the questions? It's because the question in just one sentence says solve for X. So it's better to just use X throughout, because they don't have to say for each and every question 1.1.1 solve for P, 1.1.2 solve for Z, 1.1.3 solve for Y. So it's easy for them to just say solve for P, and then all the questions, the unknown is represented by letter P, of which in this case they chose to use X. So now that I've got my exponent being the unknown, then I'm thinking of the laws of exponents. Very, very much important, guys. How many terms do you have on the left? You just have 1. On the right, how many? You just have 1. So it's just a matter of you making sure that the bases are the same. If they are the same, that means the exponents can be equated. It's not only the word the same if they are equal. So it's either they are the same if they are letters, or they are equal if it's numbers. So they just fall away, and then you've got your x, square root of x being equals to 27. Remember, guys, at all times, when you are given a mathematical problem, the first thing that you need to do is to work out the brackets if they are there. If they are not, you look for any available square root. If it's there, you work it out. If it's not there, then you just continue with your board mass, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, I call it bead mass, and you guys call it board mass. This thing, ladies and gentlemen, is the brackets, and this one is the index. What is the index? The index is those numbers with a power. Then from there, you go focus on the division. Otherwise, it could be that over or this one. Then multiplication, I said it could be a dot or just nothing. Then you have a plus and you have a subtraction. So let's see if also we can use BODMAS over there. Do I see brackets? A big no. Do I see index? Good people, a square root. I've just explained now to say when you have a square root, that means you actually have 2 to the exponent square root. So whatever that is inside in this case is x, which is x to the power invisible 1. I've just explained to say this thing is the same as 1 at the top, and then what are you having over there? You have that invisible 2. So can you now see that everything which has got a square root, it's actually an index. So that means because you did not notice any available brackets on that problem, you move on to the next thing. What is the next thing? The index. So can you see in this case, the index is given in a certain form, in a form of a square root. So remember, you have that invisible multiplication in between. So it's more like you actually have x multiplied by square root of x is equals to 27. So here you've got x. Remember, you have an invisible 1. Even if you don't write it, it's fine, but always remember you've got an invisible 1. So this is being multiplied by, remember, it's x to the exponent 1 over invisible 2 being equals to 27. Good people, we are applying the rules of exponents. Can you see? You've got the basis being the same or equal. What did Mr. Sibanda say with regards to having the same basis? He said you add the exponent. So that means you just have x to the exponent 1 plus 1 over 2. The whole of that is equals to 27. What is 1 plus half, guys? Is it not 1.5? What is 1.5 in a form of a fraction? It's actually 3 over 2. You can punch 1 plus 0.5 or 1 over 2. It's going to give you 3 over 2. Massively important, ladies and gentlemen, that you pay attention to all the details. Okay, so now what exactly do we want to do? We want to now just have our x over there. But how can we do that? Remember, you now need to remove the exponent. So multiply by exactly that, but its inverse. What is the inverse? The inverse is whatever being written at the bottom, you write it at the top. Whatever written at the bottom, at the top, you write it at the bottom. So let's see what happens over there. Can you see it's positive 3 over 2. That's why you multiplied by positive, the inverse being 2 over 3. Why doing that? Is because you want that to cancel with that to cancel with that, so that you remain with just x. So it's more like if you punch all of this, it gives you 1. That is why you're having x to the exponent invisible. Guys, whatever that you do on the left, you do on the right. So what you did on the left is to multiply by the power of 2 over 3. So even on the right, you multiply by exactly that. So can someone just punch that on a calculator and tell me what are you getting there? So that means you punch in 27 to the exponent 2 over 3. Guys, I think I'm experiencing a load shedding. Let me quickly try to check if I've got a plan B. Okay, it's back now, but let me check if I've got my backup power. So someone in the meantime, can you just punch that and check if you are getting an answer of which we can try to use to prove if our final answer is correct. In the meantime, let me quickly get my power so that in case if it goes away again. I think I've got my backup in good condition. So did someone punch 27 to the exponent 2 over 3? What are you getting when you punch all of that, guys?
It's positive 9.
She is getting positive 9. Is it everyone getting positive 9?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's prove if this answer is correct. How do we prove it? So that means wherever you see x, substitute your positive 9. So that means we're going to have 2 to the exponent 9 square root of 9. When you punch all of this, what are you getting? I think it's 2 to the exponent 9, that is times 3. What is 9 times 3? Is it not 27? I think it's 27. Let me just check. Let me check. 9 times 3. Yes, it's 27. So can you see the left side is the same as the right side? So that means this answer, Lerato, it's 100% correct. But most importantly, where exactly are you scoring? What is it? Where exactly are you scoring some marks? Let's quickly check. This question was allocated, what was it? I think it was allocated 4 marks. Yes, it was 4 marks. I know very well that your final answer is going to be given a mark, and again, for you to remove those exponents by 2 to the exponent that, they are also going to give you a mark. And again, surely they can also give you a mark over there. And again, I think this step of you saying x to the exponent that is equals to 27, it's going to be allocated a mark. So guys, are you happy with those marks over there? Did it make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. I notice we are remaining with about 15 minutes. So I'll just have to make sure that I try to squeeze everything within that time. Otherwise, if I don't, then I'll just explain in terms of how you go about the rest of the question. So 1.1.4 is x squared minus 2x minus 8 less than 0. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a problem. What type of a problem is this? It's an inequality. Why? Because I notice I've gotten a less than. It could be less than is equals to. It could be greater than is equals to. It could be greater than. So what type of an inequality is this? Is it a linear inequality? Is it a quadratic inequality? It's a quadratic inequality. Why? Because I see squared over there. Is it in the standard form? What makes it to be in the standard form? That's when you have a or coefficient letter squared, coefficient letter, and a constant, whatever the inequality sign, must be equated to 0 or must be compared to 0 or right on the 0 on the right side. So that means it's in the standard form. What does it mean if it's in the? It means you can now find the critical values of the factors. Let's say we find the factors. What are the factors there? The factors, it's xx. Obviously, when you say 8, 2 factors that make up 8 and can still give you that, I think is 4 and 2. So what can give you that one in the middle? That's when you have, let's say, negative. Oh, and remember guys, if you are able to find 2 factors of which they can give you a constant and a middle term, then you just say the bigger number takes the sign of the middle term. What is the bigger number? The bigger number is 4, so it takes the sign of the middle term be negative. So if there you have a negative, then it forces it to also be to be positive over there. So it's only when you can say x is equals to 4 or x is equals to negative 2. So these are what we call the critical values, ladies and gentlemen. It's more like you said this, you equate it to 0, and you say this plus 2 is equals to 0. So this is the only moment you are allowed to use an equal sign when you're dealing with inequalities, just for you to get the critical values. What do you do with the critical values? Is because you want to represent them on a number line. So between negative 4 and 4, which one comes first? Obviously, it's negative 2. It's a smaller number. You know, on your x-axis, on this side you have negative values, on that side you have positive values, or on this side you have smaller values, and in that direction you have bigger values. Ladies and gentlemen, something that I've taught you guys in the beginning of the year, I said when you are given less than or greater than, you just do a 0 there which is not shaded. But when it's given less than or is equals to, when it's given greater than or is equals to, you do a 0 that is shaded. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. It's massively important that at all times you notice all of that. And since I've been doing this type of problems for inequalities, I've realized that always, I think it's always when you have less than sign there and you are able to get your critical values, finally, your final answer is just going to be that less than x less than 4. And you just join both of those unshaded zeros. By so doing, you can score yourself full marks. But the moment, let's say maybe this thing, it was greater than, normally when it's greater than, you'll find that after having your number line there and you have your whatever, you have that arrow in that direction and that arrow in that direction. So let's say you had 4 there and you had 8. So you just say x. You take this arrow as it is. You can see it's in that direction. Then you say 4. Then you say, or you say x. You just take that arrow as it is in that direction. Then you write 8 over there. Because of the limited time, I'll just leave it there with the hope that you did understood. Otherwise, I'll make sure that I go through that again sometime before you write your mathematics exam. But I hope that made sense, ladies and gentlemen. So now, this is where you're going to score your 3 marks. Where exactly are you going to score your 3 marks, guys? I think for you to get what is it, the factors there will give you a mark. For you to get the critical values, I'm going to give you a mark, ladies and gentlemen. And again, for representing your final answer in that format of inequalities, I'm also going to give you a mark. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you say you grabbed something new over there? Did it make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
If that is the case, then let me quickly remove all of. Remember, guys, follow the numbering system used in the question paper. So, where are we now? So, can you guys see that we are now there where they say 1.2 given that? So, this is what you are given, ladies and gentlemen. You are given f of x being equals to 5x squared plus 6x minus 7. And I'll just read the first one. It says 2.2.1. So we are now on 1.2. So we are now on 1.2.1 over there. But this one is given as 1.2. Yes, as 1.2. And then 1.2.1 is the first question that we'll be doing under 1.2. So the question says solve for x. Solve for x if f of x is equals to 0 correct to 2 decimal places. So it's not always where examiner will just say solve whatever if whatever of x is equals to 0. If they say it's equals to 8, you equate the whole of this to 8. But in this case, because they said to 0, you equate it to 0. And that word on its own, it simply tells you to use a quadratic equation or formula because you cannot find the factors which are not in a form of a decimal. So, that quadratic formula, it helps you to find the factors, but the factors are in a form of a decimal, of which you cannot work it out using your head. So that means the whole of this, you equate it to 0. 5x squared plus 6x minus 7 is equals to, why am I, it's because they said solve for x if f of x is equals to 0 correct to do this decimal placing. So The formula says plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, the whole of that, is equals to 2a. So what you do is to substitute. What is your b? Inside the brackets is positive 6. Very, very much important, lady. So now put it again inside the brackets. What is your a? It's positive 5. What is your c? It's negative 7. The whole of that divided by 2 into your a being positive that. So what you do, ladies and gentlemen, you can just punch the whole of that firstly using a positive sign. So let's see quickly what are we getting when we do that. So we have negative b square root of b squared minus 4. A is that, and then you have c being negative that, and then 2 into that. So this is what you are getting as your first possible answer. So you are getting negative 3 plus 2 square root of 11 over 5. Same time, just continue with that one. Convert it to a decimal and get 0.73. Round it to 2 if they said round it to 2. Otherwise, if they say round it to 1, round it to 1. If it's not stated, then you round it to 2. So normally they do state to say round it to 1 or 2. Then go back to that same original formula, that one, and change it to a minus sign. What are you getting? So you are having or x is equals to negative 3 plus a 2 the root of 11 over 5. Remember, there's a difference, guys. This is negative 3, but this is negative the whole of this thing. So be careful when you write it down. So let's convert it to a decimal. Then we're getting x is equals to negative 1.93. So these two things, ladies and gentlemen, these are your factors. So you can't factorize them because they're in the form of a decimal. But if you write the whole of that decimal as it is and substitute it there and there, you are going to get 0, I'm telling you. Also for this one, if you substitute it there and then you punch the whole of it as the entire decimal you're going to get 0. But if you substitute it as it is, you might get 0.00 something because you've rounded it off. But if you punch all of this as a fraction as it is there and there, you are going to get exactly 0. Also, if you punch that. I hope that made perfect sense to every one. Let's see. This question is allocated 4 marks. For you, I think to substitute correctly, I'm going to give you a mark. And again, for the formula, I'm going to give you a mark. For your 2 answers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a mark. Very, very much important. Guys, are you happy with that one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So let's quickly check what other questions are we still okay. So they say hence. The moment they say hence, the word hence simply means refer to the previous correct answer. So make sure to get it correct, because if you get it wrong, then even this question are going to get okay. So hence or otherwise calculate the value of d for which 5x squared plus 6x minus d is equals to 0 has equal roots. Okay, something that you need to be aware, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you've got a problem where you have equal roots, from that formula of x, it's equals to plus or minus square root of b squared minus what? 4ac, the whole of this divided by 2a. You will remember very well that they said hence, which simply means refer to the previous question. So when you have equal roots, you can just equate that which is within the brackets to 0. So the formula actually says delta is equals to b squared minus 4ac. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there, that you fully understand. So remember, they've said something to say in a situation where you've got 5x squared plus what? Plus 6x and they said minus d over there. So you use this formula and you equate everything to 0. So our delta there, it's equated to 0 because they said equal roots. It's just that we don't have enough time, but I'll explain this on some other lesson. You equate it to 0, then you just know this is your A, this is your B, this is your what? This is your C. So that means you have 6 squared over there minus 4. What is your A? Your A is 5. What is your C? Your C, it's this one being negative D. So you just solve for that D, because that's what the question wanted you to solve. So let's see, what is 6 squared? 6 squared is equal to 36. So you transpose, it becomes negative 36, being equals to this times that, and you also multiply negative by negative, it becomes a positive. I think 4 times that is actually 20. So it's more like you have positive 20 D over there. So you now need to remove everything attached to D, because D is exactly what you're calculating. So that means your D is going to be equals to, let's punch all of that. It's negative 36 over 20, then is the same as negative 5 over 5. So in short, your D is actually negative 9 over 5, where the whole of that equation actually has equal roots. And this question was actually allocated, what was it? I think it was allocated 3 marks. So for you to substitute correctly, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you a mark. For you to do what, guys? To simplify that, I'm also going to give you a mark over there. And obviously, your final answer is also allocated a mark. Even though I was very fast, did you all understand all that I've explained over there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so quickly, I'm going to be very fast on this one. So this is the last question, being a simultaneous equation. It's x minus 2y being equal to negative 3, and you also have x y is equals to 20. This question is allocated 6 marks. So ladies and gentlemen, you are given 2 equations. Regard the first one as equation number 1, second one as equation number 2. Most importantly, guys, when you're given a problem similar to this one, what you want to do is to make either x or y the subject of the formula. So you need to check between these 2 equations, which one is less complicated. So you can see that one is less complicated, also this one. But if you use this one, you're going to have fractions of which the fractions are going to hammer you big time. I know. So just look for that letter which is just invisible, one letter, and it doesn't have a power. So that means I can use equation number 1 to derive equation number 3. Okay, so write it as positive 2y minus 3 and say this is your equation number 3. So can you see, you can now use equation number 3 into that equation that you did not use, which is equation number 2. So you just substitute. Let's see, what are we having when you substitute over there? So obviously, wherever we see x, we substitute all of that. So that means we have 2, that is equals to 3 multiplied by y. This is equals to 20. So you multiply that by that by that. You end up having 2y squared minus 3y. So this one, let's transpose, because we notice we have a squared over there. So it's minus 20, we equate it to 0. Why did I have to transpose? It's because I noticed that I've got a quadratic equation, therefore I'll need to find the factor. So can you see, it might take you a bit long to find the factors if you use some other method, but let's use Mahona Jotle, guys. Over negative into, what is my b? It's negative 3 squared plus square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 is 2 for a c. Negative 20 is my c. At the bottom is 2 into 2. So can you see I'm getting 1, which means my first factor is actually x in the opposite sign. Then I'm going back to change my positive sign to a minus sign. Then I'm getting a fraction which is negative 11 over 2. Then I know the bottom one is attached to x. Then because it's a negative answer that I got, I write it as positive inside the brackets. So it was negative 11 over 2. So That means my x is actually equals to negative 11 over 2. I just had to rewrite it like that in the brackets because this step is possibly allocated a mark. Then I say, oh, x is equals to 1. I had to write it like that because it's allocated a mark. Massively important. So now you can use these two values to substitute into equation. Why do you have to substitute into equation? It's because you now need to find, let's see, the values. I think I made a minor mistake over there. So it's not x that we are calculating, but it's y. I hope some of you guys, you did notice, but realizing that I'm trying to be quick on this one. So you could notice that what I wrote just now is what I meant. So you are substituting this into your equation 3 because you want to calculate the actual x value. So x into negative 11 over 2 minus 3, you are going to get your first x values. Then you say x, it's equals to, what are we having then? We have 2 into y. Remember, it's, wait, I think it's yes is 2 into y minus 3. So quickly we punch all of that. I think that is going to cancel. Then you have negative 11 minus 3. I think it's negative 14 there. And then you have this times that is 2 minus that. I think it's negative 1. So that means the other x value is negative 1. So you can write your answers in a form of the coordinates to say where x is negative 14, the corresponding y value is actually negative 11 over 2. Where x is negative 1, the corresponding y value is positive 1. I hope, even though I was quick there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just praying that I got it correct. Otherwise, if I did not, I'm just going to suspect that because I was way too fast, I might have not got it correct. But let's quickly check. I'm just suspecting something there. We had this is equals to that, and then again, did I even copy it correctly, guys? Guys, is there someone who noticed if I made a mistake or everything was correct there? Okay, this is how it was. Then what did I do? I transposed, then I've got that. Okay, then it's fine. Then there, what are we having? I had to work it out and rewrite it in the standard form. Yes, then I had to find the factors there. I'm just not sure if those factors, I've got them correctly, but it's fine. So guys, I just don't want to chow too much of time for the next lesson, but I'm suspecting that I made a mistake. Is Mr. Sibanda here? Maybe he noticed my mistake. Let me quickly check.
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Did you notice a mistake if I've made one? I'm suspecting.
I'm getting the
Yes, I'm still
difference.
checking. I'm still checking what is.
Okay,
I'm still
someone is
following.
saying
Yeah.
they're getting something. What did you get? Who is it?
It's Tumelo, sir. The
Mm-hmm,
my first y value is positive 4. Then my
mm-hmm.
second y value is negative 5 over 2. Then when I substitute to find x, I got 5 and negative 8, sir. I don't know
Yes,
if
those. Yes, no, those are the correct final answers. When I worked out this problem, I got those answers. But let's just write the final answers and let it to be, what is it, homework for everyone. So you're saying the x value, what did you get? You said 5.
yes,
Or
the y
x, you
is
got
positive.
negative 8.
Yes, sir.
And then y, the corresponding y value here, you're saying got
Positive
4,
4,
and then here you got negative 5 over
negative 5
2.
over
Yes.
2.
So also when I was practicing this problem, I also got the same answer. So guys, thanks very much for joining. I suppose you enjoyed today's lesson. Don't miss the lesson by Mr. Sibanda at 8:30. Just make sure that you take a quick break. Mr. Sibanda, is it only for grade 12? It's for grade 12, no?
Yes. It's for grade 12 only.
Yes, it's for grade. So you guys grade 10s and 11, you can now go to watch the legacy there. Some of you, you can go sleep. Don't go to groove, guys. It's not time for you guys to be grooving. You know you have less time. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Desmond, and I'm out.
Yes, sir.
Yes.